From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, some 38 minutes ago. Vice President Lyndon Johnson has left the hospital in Dallas, but we do not know to where he has proceeded. Presumably, he will be taking the oath of office shortly and become the 36th President of the United States.
All right, on this date, 59 years ago, John F. Kennedy assassinated. To this day, Americans who lived through the event remember where they were at that time. Joining us now to discuss, former New York City Commissioner in the Giuliani and Bloomberg administrations, Brian Andersson. And Brian, we could discuss how come documents haven't been released, but it's always interesting to hear people where they were. What your experience was?
Well, I was in first grade in Catholic schools, and it's Tallentine, Fordham Road University in the Bronx. I remember being home that day. Everyone else in my class remembers being in class and hearing it over the loudspeaker. I was apparently sick that day, and my cartoons were interrupted by this news flash from Dallas. And of course, I sat bolt upright, ran to get my mom to show her what was on TV. The woman from upstairs came down screaming, crying. It was very scary at the time. I don't want to admit that it was 59 years ago. I'm scared that I can think in terms of that many years. But it was a scary time for a little kid that the president's been shot, you know, wasn't killed yet, wasn't dead yet. And the woman upstairs screaming at our front door, and she was very afraid. So you can imagine the 6 to 7-year-old, how they feel about it. And then it was the whole week of the funeral and then catching Oswald. And it turns out the picture of Oswald looked like that woman who was crying looked like her husband. So that complicated things in my mind. Yeah, no wonder she was upset.
Yeah, and I was little as well, and my parents put me in front of the TV, and I sat there and watched, and I remember watching Jack Ruby come out and shoot Oswald, and this is a weird thing to say, but I think it was at that time I became a journalist in my heart, because I watched all this unfolding. I was fascinated by it. I was, you know, they worry about, oh, what you show kids, you're going to scare. No, I was fascinated by how it all, and if you go back and look at the video of the news coverage, they got some things wrong at the beginning, I think, including Jack Ruby's name at the beginning, I think was off a little bit. But this also was the end of Camelot, as they say. It seemed like our country was ascending, World War II was over, but things changed at that point. And getting back to the original premise here, we've never seen all the documentation on this.
That's true, and it's not up to the National Archives to release it. That's my counterpart. I was the Department of Records. It's the same idea. There's just too many fingers in this. There's national security issues and all sorts of other issues that probably need to be discussed before this paperwork can be released. And who knows if it's going to be conclusive in any matter. It'll simply give those people out there a lot more to talk about and debate. I don't know if there'll be answers in what is ultimately released.
Sure, sure.
You wonder what they are talking about.
Well, right. Why haven't they released things? You know, I also think it's interesting. You know, in that era, I was not around. I was not on the planet just yet. However, it's interesting because people, I think, were so focused on the news and what you really believed and looked to it for guidance. And it's just interesting for me even seeing some of those, that Walter Cronkite announcement, so different from news today, and how people really would come together, and there were just a handful of stations, and things were very, very different. Television was still new.
Exactly.
I think that's true. It's an event that changed the world and changed a lot of lives at the time, and stays with us. I'm sure you will never forget the feeling from back then.
Not at all.
All right. Brian Andersson, thank you so much.